Hello and welcome to Global Sanctuary for Elephants podcast, Global Rumblings. Global Sanctuary for Elephants, or GSE for short, is a non-profit organization with a mission to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally, often from very traumatic pasts. I'm your host, Nadia Mari, and I'll be taking you to the lush jungle of the Mato Grosso region in central Brazil, home of GSE's initial project, Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. Currently home to 5 female Asian elephants lovingly referred to as the girls. Hello everybody, welcome back and thank you for tuning in again this week for a new episode of Global Rumblings. We'll be talking more about Bambi, the sanctuary's 7th elephant. So let's say hi to Kat and Scott.
See, I told you, I'm just not going to say it now.
I've been told to stay silent initially, so I'm listening well. Kat, go for it.
Hi.
Hi everyone. Hi Nadia, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying the last week of Sanctuary Life, soaking up all the precious moments here, and I am still even more amazed and at awe about how you two and your entire team do what they do every single day. So yeah, my utmost respect again to you all. So I watched you do some treatment on Bambi today, so let's pick up on Bambi. We left off last week with you arriving at the zoo in Sao Paulo State, Ribeirao Preto, and because there was a positive ruling in favor of Bambi being sent to the sanctuary. So tell us how the rescue went, because you did say that it was supposed to go very fast or faster because she was in Sao Paulo, but things were different when you arrived.
Don't look at me. I wasn't there, mister. I was here taking care of
elephants. I was told to say
silent. No, you were told that I was going to say hi first.
So yeah, Bambi. What a challenge that ended up being. What was easy was the paperwork. All that process, was super, super fast. Our team arrived there from various parts of Brazil. Everybody was really good. We had the federal police ready. Everyone was all set, except for Bambi. Bambi the state we found her in was vastly different than what we knew of her before. When we first saw her in La Maison back in 2013, she was very, very forward. She was very present. We didn't see her swaying very much, that I recall. And just seemed very connected, very, very interconnected to what was going on around her. And when we arrived in Ribeirao Preto, what we saw was a very different Bambi. We saw Bambi who was very isolated, who had been very reclused. She was hiding back in the corner of her barn. And even though she had access outside to the division between she and Maison, she wouldn't go outside very often. So we had hoped that, like with other elephants, when we provide the transport crate, she would have been more stimulated by having something new there. And she was initially interested, but the fear was substantially greater than we thought.
Oh dear.
Yeah, she would just stay stuck in her little corner, and she would come up periodically. Initially, she was interested. She would put 2 feet in, and we thought pretty good. Okay, this might work out all right. But then it took nothing for her to be startled and spooked and go hiding back in her enclosure. And for the first day or two, she wouldn't stay hidden for too long, maybe an hour, and then she'd come back out. And we started playing with the doors around her because she had, I think she even had all 4 feet in the trailer at one point, or she had. Oh, that's when we realized how long her nose was. That's when we realized
have a really long trunk for an Asian elephant.
We would normally you can put food at the front of the crate, like inside the crate still, and they had to put all 4 feet into the crate to get the food at the front.
Okay.
And so what you do, as we talked about before, it's a progression: put food at the back, put food in the middle, put food towards the front. So they kind of explore while looking for the food and getting that positive reinforcement. She could actually have her back feet outside and pick up food that was actually outside the front of the crate. So
oh
she
my
had,
gosh.
between
wow.
stretching
unusual?
forward. Oh, very unusual. I mean, between her stretching forward and the length of her nose, she had no problem reaching all the way forward. So she actually
Amazing.
doing pretty well. She had, she was getting closer, further in, and we started playing with the doors a little bit, just making the doors behind her make a little bit of noise. And at one point, the door made just a little bit more noise than she was ready for. She got startled, ran backwards, ran into the back of her enclosure, and she stayed there for another 3 hours and would not come
bless.
out. She was just stuck swaying and swaying and swaying and swaying and swaying and swaying and swaying. So it was a challenge. We actually did maybe the only live feed that we've done without an elephant during a rescue to explain what was going on, to explain her scenario. We just kind of sat there and just talked about what she was going through, what we saw with her, what we were going to try to do, possibly readjusting her transfer date if we needed to. A few entertaining elements in that. On the day of transfer, the crane arrived, even though she had gone in the crate, and we always expect, well, maybe she's going to go in today. So everyone was ready to go. Everyone had packed up all their luggage, and she decided she wasn't going to go in. So then we went back to the hotel for the night, checked back into the rooms. The next morning, checked out of the rooms with all of our luggage, and she didn't go in again. And I think on that next night, we said, let's just keep our stuff in the rooms, keep it quasi ready to go. So if she decides to go, we can run back and get our stuff. That was also laundry day, because at this point, we should have been almost arriving at the sanctuary. So everyone had their laundry. Went to the laundromat, and about halfway through that day, Bambi decided she was going in. And it was a bit chaotic, but how she went in was there was an extra door that was actually part of the zoo exhibit, the zoo enclosure. And we were able to close that door first and then close our door behind her. And she went in when it was just me and Trish were there. No one else was around. She was getting more comfortable. And I said, before we lose her again, now that she is comfortable, let's just try to close this other door first and see if it works. And indeed it worked. She backed up into the door. She wasn't super thrilled that she couldn't get out, but when she realized the door wasn't going to move, she settled right into the crate and was ready to go. Everything was a little bit slow at that point because we had to run to the front of the zoo, our front of the enclosure, and tell everybody Bambi's in the crate. Please go get the federal police. Please tell the crane operator. Please tell everybody this is the day. It's actually happening. She's ready to go today. So I remember Rafael going to the laundromat and grabbing.
I was going to say, you're going to have to pick up your laundry.
And going to everybody's room and packing all their luggage. And it may have been the first time in my life that I was more organized than anybody else. I was the only one that had the luggage fully packed and ready to go. And everybody else is grabbing their toiletries and grabbing whatever else is in the room, throwing it in luggage. So the next couple of days on the road, we were pulling each other's clothes out of what was supposed to be our bag of clothes. So it's a little bit entertainment amongst the elephant transfer. But everyone, I think for that transfer, it was maybe the most scared we've seen any other elephant in going into the transfer because of the political challenges that were there. They were started to ask some questions about, we're getting nervous because she's been inside for 4 days. She hasn't been allowed outside, and which didn't really make sense because before we had the crate there, for weeks at a time, she wouldn't go outside, but because it was our crate that was stopping her from going outside, they started to push back a little bit. So we had to navigate that a little bit. And the other thing that we did, we actually opened up the crate all the way at one point. So she could, if she wanted to go in there, she could have gone all the way through the crate and into the enclosure.
Okay.
But she didn't want to do that either.
Didn't.
She would do the same thing, 2 feet all the way in, maybe a third sometimes, one standing out the back and her nose going all the way through the crate. It was actually the time that we noticed that she appreciated us being on her blind side. Yeah, when we were on her blind side, she seemed to feel more comfortable. And I think when she was on her blind side, she knew where we were. And when she could actually look to the right, knowing that we were on her left and where we were, she didn't have to guess what was happening on the left-hand side. So with us being on the left-hand side, she felt confident. It's like, okay, you guys are there. That side's good. And we started to build a little bit of relationship with her during those couple of days and what her comfort and discomforts were and how crazy her nose was.
A long, crazy nose. So yes, I'm surprised that you said that you closed the door behind her and she wasn't, that as soon as she realized that the door wasn't moving, she wasn't particularly happy, but then she settled down. I thought maybe as it did take such a while, she might feel very uncomfortable and sort of want to go out straight away. So did you then load straight away? How was she then when the crane come? Because that's lots of noise. Or was she then just cool in the crate? And
she was pretty good. She wasn't perfect by any means, but normally during that noise, none of them are 100% comfortable. Normally you have a period of that adjustment from being closed in the crate. And then once the noise starts coming in, the cranes start arriving and more people around, more energy around, they're going to automatically get a little bit more uncomfortable with that. But overall, she did well. I don't think much different than most elephants in that situation. And then once you get on the road, she just settled right in. She did really, really well on the road. But that's typical also. That with these, with preparing for elephant transfers, there's always a question of how much time do you give them? And the reality is sometimes more time isn't necessarily beneficial because you cannot prepare them for that getting on the road and going unless you want to put them on the truck and drive them around the block and bring them back to the zoo. But then, there's not really not a lot you can do to prepare for that moment. So it's just a matter of monitoring their comfort, knowing that you can turn around at any moment, knowing that we can stop at any moment. Even if the crate is on the truck, we still could have the opportunity of, nope, we're not going to do this. We still have all those chances to step back and to stop the transfer. And I think all of our team has enough comfort to make that backward step if it's required. That allows us comfort to move forward.
Okay. And how did the zoo's other elephants do during this time? Maison, what was she doing? Was she locked outside
Scott.
Or was she in?
She's playing with anybody that would listen.
She was loving the attention. She's actually very sweet.
Mason's super cute. She's very soft. She's very sweet. She was, I think she had engagement with the keepers that were there. But I think once she saw people that were listening to her and engaging with her, she really just wanted to milk that and take advantage of it. And she was just incredibly sweet and vocal and very soft, much softer than we had seen
when
in
we
the
saw her the
past.
first time.
Yeah, even when we first arrived, there's an edge about her presence that's a little bit more closed.
Oh, so she was left, and then Bambi, because obviously the lawsuit was about Bambi. So how long did the trip take from Sao Paulo down to where you are, where the sanctuary is?
It was a short trip, a day and a half, 2 days.
Oh, day and a half. Okay.
I don't remember. To be honest, I don't remember. Once you go over 24 hours, all the days blend in together.
I can imagine.
I think it's about a day and a half, and I don't recall. I honestly, and I do with all these relocations, I don't recall what hour of the day we arrived, but I think we arrived in the afternoon.
The only thing I remember is she ran out of the crate as soon as it was open. Everybody has their own speed, and you never know whether it's going to take 5 minutes, 5 hours, engagement, 12, who knows how long. You had elephants in Tennessee that took all day. So you never know, but as soon as she had access out, she was like, okay, go on. Yeah. So that part was easy.
It was actually interesting to see because of how fearful she was in her old enclosure. That I think overall, her coming out of the crate and her next steps actually went really, really well, all things considered, because of what we had feared she may be because of how recluse she was. But I think a lot of that had to be environmental induced.
Sure.
Because of her relationship with Maison, because of the facility design, because it was an easy place for her to kind of hide back in her corner. I think it allowed her to stay stuck in that insecure place. And the sanctuary being so open, I think encourages the contrary to that.
And one of the things about her relationship with Maison, people quickly go to that, she was bullied, she was this, and we've talked about it before, the big fight that they had. Bambi is the one who actually started it. But I think people often forget Maya and Gita before they came had a terrible relationship with each other. Maya was extremely dominant. She would knock Gita over. I mean, they did not have a positive relationship, and that changed as soon as they got here. So people often ask, if you ever had the chance to take Maison, would you take her or not because of her relationship with Bambi? And it's that thing of course we would take her. We would give her the same chance we give every elephant here to give them the opportunity to find out who they are when everything they do isn't completely influenced by their surroundings and the humans around them. When you talk about Maison, And the fact that she shifted once she realized people were listening to her. You know, she had people that she had one keeper who really, really liked her. It's not like she didn't have anybody there, but those relationships were dictated by humans. You know, even when they would go out and interact with her, they would ask her to put her trunk up, and they would do, you know, it wasn't just, hey, Maison, how you doing? And hanging out. And I think one of the big things she ended up liking was just that very passive attention and companionship, and people being there and not wanting anything from her and not having any sort of expectation, because she would just walk along the hot wire when Scott was there and when Trish was there, and she would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And she had like a little elbow boo-boo, which was adorable. And she's like making all these super soft little noises and touching her elbow, making sure that Scott and Trish saw that she had something wrong with her elbow. And she was just so soft and sweet and so different from, as he said, even how she was when they first arrived. And that is part of that listening to, you know, an elephant, and the difference that that makes. You know, nobody was beating her. Nobody was doing anything terrible to her, but nobody was actually letting her say anything really, you know. So big shift. And of course, if we ever had the opportunity to bring her here, we would in a heartbeat.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. So when you stayed at home, also, you stayed at the sanctuary, you prepared everything. So though I presume there was a lovely pile of fresh sand for Bambi to lie in. Did she lie down? And probably a huge dust bath again?
Yeah, she didn't actually lay down at first, but one of the things they had said, and we assume it's because of what happened with her being trapped in the pool when she did have the fight with Maison, was that she was scared of water. She didn't let anyone bathe her, so on and so forth. And one of the first things that happened when she arrived was she took a huge bath from the hose. Scott, you know, when you have an elephant who you think may not appreciate water, you know, you just don't go straight away and decide you're going to hose them off and they're going to have a good time. You know, it is giving it in their nose, seeing what they do with it. If she starts to bathe herself, then you do a little bit on her, see how she responds, so on and so forth. It's a little step by step, but she like was head squishing, butt in the air, like rubbing everywhere, probably trying to get rid of all that dead skin that was all over her. I'm sure she had been itchy for so long.
Her skin was a mess, absolute mess.
Yeah, but that was pretty much, she ate some, she drank some, she dusted, and then she took a giant hose bath.
I think she took several hose baths, if I remember, over the next couple of days. There was mud puddles all over the barn.
Yeah.
And then she went to the itchy, scratchy tree then as soon as she was out in yard one, I presume.
And into the mud wallow. So with Maison, to go back to Maison for a second, one thing that's always interesting, you know, and Kat touched on this a little bit, of asking her to put her trunk in the air. And it really is interesting to watch so many relationships with caregivers, especially in that type of environment where it is free contact. It's amazing how many times they ask the elephant to do something. They're like, oh, let me see your foot. Let me, you know, lift your nose. You know, it's almost like do a trick and then I'll love you. You know, and it's interesting. And I don't understand the psychology behind that from a human perspective. But it is interesting when you have an elephant who you're not even trying to develop a relationship with. You know, you're just being there and you're giving her hay and you're engaging with a little bit just because you don't want to focus only on Bambi.
And cleaning up all her poop.
And cleaning up her yard. You know, but it was interesting to see how organically she came out of that shell and exposed that side of herself. And it's just really a gift to see, you know.
And, you know, people do when we have relocations, and we touched on this with Lady, how people were like, Lady loves you to Scott, you know, like over the lives. And it's like, wow, no, not at all. No. But it is that almost instantaneous perception that they have that our team is different than anybody who they've ever interacted with. You know, and it is that thing of Maison being like, oh, wait, they don't want anything from me. They just want to hang out and they give me stuff and talk to me. And, you know, it's not really about them. It's actually about me. And they pick up on it so quickly, and it shifts so much. You know, no, they don't love you. That takes time and trust. But they do seem to sense very quickly that our team is very different.
Oh,
And even just giving them the respect to not just invade their space.
Sure.
How many people from the zoo just walked into her enclosure?
Sure.
Whether it be directors or biologists, whoever, they just walk right on in.
And they tell us we can all the time. Even the first time we visited, oh, you can go right in with her. It's like, no.
And we said no. So even just, something like that, just respecting that space, respecting that you don't know who she is. She doesn't know who you are. Those little things that make such a huge difference for them to feel safer.
Well, it's like with humans as well. You don't just like barge in, you knock on the door and say, hi, can I come in? So equally with an elephant as well. Yes, they're in a zoo and they're captive there, but even so, it is her space. So just saying, hi, good morning, I'm here and I'm coming in feeding you. I can imagine, yeah. Well, I have seen the way you interact here with your elephants. So that is obviously very, very respectful, and their concerns and how they are on that day is always on your top priority. And if they are, don't want to come to the fence or don't want to do that, well, then they don't, they get fed later, or I don't know, you make the treatment possible where they want it. So the elephant's always number one here. So that's really wonderful to see.
Yeah, you've seen it on the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, I should say. The one day we were getting ready to feed the elephant a new treatment in the morning, and everyone was all together for the first time in a few days. It's like, no, treatments don't have to happen. And if treatments don't happen all day, that's cool, because this is a beautiful opportunity for all 5 of them to be relatively close proximity. Mara was in a good place. Bambi was in a good place. Geisha was super chill. So we have a choice. Is what's the priority? Doing a treatment that isn't going to save their life or kill them. It's not going to be anything dramatic if they don't have treatment for a day. Or give them that social opportunity and respect where they all are and why they may be in that space together in that moment. If we try to control those, sometimes you're actually maybe preventing an opportunity for them to come together that they had all been talking about all morning.
Sure. And you don't want to force that scenario either of trying to create and push elephants together when they don't necessarily want to be, because that never has positive results either. So.
And this goes back to like Geisha giving her a chance to show who she is each day. I just did treatment with Bambi today, and she was hyper respectful. I mean, she was just so soft and rumbly and squeaky, actually, which we haven't seen in a while. It's just really nice to see. And it goes back to Bambi going in the crate also is, we didn't just slam her in the crate, but we did take an advantage when she was in a quiet place in the crate, because we knew that she would be okay based on, she has fear of the door closing, but we knew that she would be okay once the door was closed. And once the door was closed, and even if she wasn't, we could open the door again. But I don't want people to have the perception of first chance we had, we closed her in and ran out the door. No, we closed her in.
No.
Everything seemed okay. We still had another 2 hours to 3 hours before we even left the zoo. Because we had to mobilize everybody. And during that whole time, she actually did really, really well. And then, as we talked about, coming to sanctuary and having her giant mud baths. And here's layers and layers and layers of skin. And
skin coming off.
Oh my God, she had so much dead skin on her head. It was, an inch and a half of dead skin on her head. One of my fondest memories of all of that, and it goes back to the relationship with the zoo director and the conversations that we had, is I think it was the next day, one evening before going up to the house, she was in the mud wallow in yard 1. And I went ahead and called him on a video call, and he was at his house, his wife and daughter, and all 3 of them were in tears watching her play in the mud. And they said, we just never imagined, because of how fearful she was of water. And he said, you told us she would be okay. You told us she would adapt. And he said, this is just more brilliant, more beautiful than we ever imagined. And it was really nice to share that moment, not with anybody else there. Just, let's show you what's happening here. And it's not let's rub it in their face and show them how good. No, it's truly genuinely look at your girl. You'd be so proud of her, and it was just a nice moment to share, and kind of full circle with that education, full circle for Bambi to get, step back on nice soft dirt, in a natural environment that is surrounded by nothing but nature and smells of other elephants. And it's amazing how well everything transitions.
Oh, well, maybe next week then or next recording, we can catch up and find out about her first days at the sanctuary and whom she met up with, because you just mentioned the other day that all 5 elephants were together. So, yeah, thank you for your time. I can hear the sanctuary at the back is waking up a bit. I can hear the roosters, which our editor Bob will have to cut out.
They can be there.
So, yeah.
The roosters are everywhere from 3
roosters
o'clock in the
everywhere.
morning until 12 o'clock at night.
I always really thought they only like crow in the morning. So like in the afternoon, I'm like thinking, what does that mean? Does it mean go to bed now? Or does it mean, wake up, you're too sleepy? So yeah, very charming things here.
Yeah,
Love the roosters.
They talk all day.
Okay. I'll see you around. And our next recording, then I will be back in Germany. So we'll see each other over the screen. And see you in a minute.
See you in a minute.
And thanks for taking
again.
time.
It's always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
That's all that we have time for this week. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Another great zero-cost way to support us is by leaving a 5-star rating or a glowing review, as this helps other people discover the podcast. Thank you so much, and until we meet up in 2 weeks' time, take care.